before. You have two suitcases, a master's degree ahead of you, not yet earned, but promised. You have this and the names and phone numbers of people you barely know and the weight of everyone's expectations. My name is Nnamdi Ihenacho, and then in January 2010, I arrived at Wilmington International Airport in North Carolina for the first time. I left everything behind, my family in Owerri, my friends, the only life I had ever known. I was the first in my immediate family to make this kind of move. Everyone was watching, everyone had expectations, and I was terrified. I stood in the arrival halls and I saw him, my cousin Chimobi. I had never met him before, not in person. But 2 years earlier, at my graduation ceremony in 2008, his mother, my mom's cousin, Auntie Kim Jumafo, had watched me celebrate with my peers. And she had pulled me aside afterward and asked, "Who are you, this young man? And what are you trying to do next?" I told her I wanted to study in America. She said, "I have somebody I want you to meet." That conversation led to a phone call, and that phone call led to an application. That application led to an admission letter. That admission letter led me to standing in the rival halls in January 2010, watching Shimobi walk toward me holding a sign with my name on it. An introduction made 2 years before I ever knew I needed it had brought me to this point. But here is what I did not understand then. That moment was not about luck. It was not about Auntie Kem Juma for being exceptionally kind, though she was. It was not about Chimobi going above and beyond, though he did. It was about something deeper. It was about a form of capital that nobody talks about. Something as real and as powerful as education or money, but completely invisible. I call it belonging capital. And this is what I learned. Success is not built on credentials alone. It is not built on hard work alone. Success is built on knowing the right people, on being seen by them, on having someone speak your name in a room you have not yet entered. It is built on belonging to a network that believes in you before you believe in yourself. Over the next few minutes, I want to show you what it looks like. I want to show you why it matters, not just for me, but for everyone in this room trying to build something meaningful in this world. Section 2, the world I came from. Before I tell you what Belonging Capital did for me in America, I need to take you somewhere else first. Owerri, southeastern Nigeria, my home. I grew up in a large extended family. And when I say large, I mean large. My grandfather had several wives, which meant our family tree looked less like a tree and more like a forest. There were cousins everywhere, aunties in every direction, uncles, those whose names I was still learning as a teenager. But the heart of the family, the place we returned to, was our hometown of Ogwa, a village in southeastern Nigeria where the whole family gathered for Christmas and Easter. Children running through the compound, laughter pouring out of every window, food being prepared in multiple kitchens at the same time. One thing I had never experienced as a child was the idea that someone might not have enough. If you did not like what your mother cooked, you simply walked to another auntie's house. No one asked questions, they simply handed you another plate. Because in that environment, survival was never designed to be individual, it was collective. Community was not a nice idea, it was infrastructure. In Igbo, we say, "Otonya ne wulo." One person does not build a house. I did not just hear that proverb growing up, I lived the reality of inside the reality of it. And the man who showed me what that proverb looked like in flesh and blood was a man in our family called Dereji. In my culture, Day was a title given to older male figures, a senior brother and uncle, a cousin who had walked further down the road than you. It was a word that carries respect, and Dereji earned every syllable of it. By the time I was old enough to know him, he was already in his 80s, retired, living quietly in the village of Ogwa. I only saw him during Christmas or Easter. He would sit with us and tell us old stories. He would sing. There was an old song he would sing, a school children's song, a song I still hear in my memory. "It is but time, our teacher, let us go home, come back tomorrow, because why? We are feeling hungry. Our teacher, please let us go." A song about hunger, about needing to go home, about a child asking to be released. And here was this man who has spent his entire life making sure the people around him never had to beg to go home, never had to wonder if there was a plate waiting, never had to miss a year of school because no one would pay the fees. He lived the opposite of that song. He made sure the people he loved did too. I called my mother recently to ask him, and she was at my sister's house, just across the city, looking after my dad. The same man Diriji kept in school, the same man Diriji gave a job and the home, still here, still cared for. And when I asked her about Diriji, her voice changed. It slowed down. She said he was a kind man, Nnamdi. She said it's more than once. Not a powerful man, not strategic, kind. He cared about others, even sometimes more than himself. And she told me the story. When my father was a boy, his family could not afford to keep him in secondary school. He missed an entire year. He was on the verge of losing his education entirely. It was Dereji who stepped in. He paid for my father's school fees from class 2 all the way through class 5. He kept my father at school when no one else could. Years later, when my father completed university and began his national youth service, my dad was posted to Lagos, where my mother was living. Just before they were married and just before I was born, Dereji was there too. He had risen through the ranks of the Nigerian Railway Corporation to become the head of administration, and he used that position to secure my father's placement at the railway. He did not stop there. The placement came with housing. As a new corps member, my dad was entitled to a small one-bedroom apartment. Dereji looked at my mother, pregnant, preparing to bring a new life into this world, and he used his influence to get them a two-bedroom instead. And then he went out of his way and furnished it himself, every room, so that my grandmother could come and help care for the baby. That baby was me. I was born in that two-bedroom apartment that Dereji furnished. Before I took my first breath, someone had already opened the door for me. And Dereji was not alone in this. There was another man, Diwala, who paid entirely for my dad, who paid for my father's university education, trained several of my uncles through schools, and became my father's earliest mentor. My father became a lawyer because Diwala was a lawyer and believed my father could walk in that same road. Together, these two men built something that looked less like charity and more like a system. Diwala trained them through school, Dereji employed them at railway, careers began, families were supported, entire households were transformed. Some of my uncles who worked at that railway their entire careers and are collecting pensions to this day. Their families, even after some have passed, still receive benefits from a door that was opened decades ago. One act of belonging capital multiplied across generations. My mother told me this story with reverence in her voice, not nostalgia. Reverence because she understood something that I was only beginning to grasp. The life I was living, the education I had received, the family that had supported me, the confidence that I carried when I walked into that USA Wilmington campus. None of it was self made, it was inherited. It was built for me by people who cared about others, even sometimes more than themselves. And when I arrived at the airport in Wilmington, North Carolina in January 2010, terrified and carrying two suitcases and a weight of everyone's expectations, I was not starting from zero. I was standing on the foundation that someone else had laid. Section 3, the wall. Fast forward to 2011, I was in my second year at UNC Wilmington. I had a bachelor's degree in computer engineering. I was about to finish a master's in computer science and information systems with a strong GPA. I had internship experience both in Nigeria and here in the States. By every measure, I was qualified. And so I started applying for jobs. I attended career fairs. I shook hands. I networked. I did exactly what they told me to do. I even traveled to Pennsylvania to the National Society for Black Engineers conference. I went boot to boot, spoke to employers from Boeing to Goldman Sachs. I secured 3 or 4 interviews on the spot. I was doing everything right. Then came the Goldman Sachs interview. Two gentlemen. The conversation was flowing. I was nailing it. They were asking smart questions. I was giving smart answers. I could feel the momentum. And then someone walked into the booth. They whispered something into my interviewer's ear. Two of them looked at me. One of them apologized. actually apologized and said, Nnamdi, we're sorry. We should have asked this at the beginning, but this position is only for US citizens. The interview ended. I walked out of that booth. I left the conference that day feeling something I had never felt before: helplessness. Not because I was not good enough, I was good enough. I was more than good enough. But there was a rule I could not change, a wall I could not climb, no matter how hard I worked. And that was not even the worst part. The worst part was watching my peers, my classmates from other schools, equally qualified, casually walk out of the same conference with job offers from companies like Microsoft. They were not doing anything different than I was. They were not working harder. They simply had something I did not: a passport that said the right thing. That entire season was dark. I sat with friends and wondered, is this how this ends? Do I go home empty handed? Does everyone who believed in me discover that I was not enough? I had conversations with my pastor. I had conversations with my mentors. I was terrified. And I remember telling a friend, this is it for me. I have to find another way. Because it was becoming clear hard work alone was not going to get me across the finish line. Hard work was necessary, but it was not sufficient. There was something else, something I did not have, something I could not earn alone in a room with my laptop and determination. I needed access. I needed someone to speak for me in rooms I was not in. I needed to belong to a network that could open doors that credentials alone could not unlock. I needed belonging capital. And I was about to get my first real lesson in how to build it. Section 4: Patrick and the door that opens. So there I was, terrified, doubting whether any of this was possible. And then my younger brother Chimobi called me one day. He said, I have a friend and I need you to meet. His name is Patrick. He lives in Atlanta. He's about to start a new job at Bank of America. He's going to pass through Wilmington on his way. Can he stay with you for the weekend? That weekend changed everything. Patrick arrived with his laptop. At some point during that visit, he mentioned that he was on call. And so he sat at my kitchen table, opened his laptop, he started working. I watched him. He would take a call on his iPad, real calls, real conversations, real problems being solved. Then he would jump back on his computer, type some commands, close the tickets, and jump back into conversations with me. It was seamless, it was casual, it was easy. I remember asking him, what exactly do you do? He explained he was a database administrator, SQL Server, data management. As he talked me through his day, something shifted in me. I was not just hearing about the work, I was watching the work happen in real time. And it did not look impossible. It looked like something a human could actually do. That weekend planted the seed. Months later, when I finished my master's program, I made the decision I was moving to Atlanta. And Patrick was the reason why. I moved into his house. I had 90 days on OPC to find a job or fall out of status. The clock was running. I needed to accelerate. I needed immersion. So I signed up for an SQL bootcamp. I went all in. During the day while Patrick worked from home, I'll sit beside him. I'll watch his screen. I'll see his emails come in, real tickets, real problems from real clients. And when I did not understand something, I would ask him. And he would walk me through it, not as a teacher lecturing from a podium, but as a peer saying, here's what is happening, and here's why it matters, and here's how you solve it. In the evenings, I would study YouTube. I would build my virtual labs on my own computer. I would stay up late trying to solve problems, running queries, breaking things, and fixing things. And Patrick, he loved that. He would come in and see me geeking out over SQL, and his face would light up. He would sit down and we would talk through the architecture, the optimization, the elegance of a well-written query. But the moment I knew I was ready, the moment I knew that I had crossed the invisible threshold, that moment came when Patrick's other colleagues started visiting, friends from the African community who worked in tech, and I found myself having real conversations with them, not asking for help, giving help, solving problems that they were dealing with, becoming someone they could turn to. That was the moment the script flipped. I went from being the student sitting in the corner, desperate and hungry, to being someone with something to offer. And that shift from consumer to contributor, that is what gave me the confidence to start applying for jobs. And this time when I applied, I was not alone. Patrick was not just my friend, he was my advocate. He was my translator. He was the one who could say to other people in rooms I was not in, there's someone I need you to meet. His name is Nnamdi. He's hungry, he's sharp, and he is ready. Within 2 months of moving in with Patrick, I landed my first job in tech as a database administrator. And that job became my visa sponsor. The door I had been searching for had finally opened. But here's what I want you to understand. I did not land that job because I was smarter than the person at Goldman Sachs who rejected me. I landed it because I had access. I had someone speaking my name. I had moved from the periphery to the inside of a network. I had been given belonging capital, and everything changed. Section 5, the three forms. And so I landed that job. My visa sponsorship was secured, and I made it across the finish line, and that had seemed so impossible just months before. But I want you to understand, it was not random. It follows a pattern. It has a structure. And once you see the structure, you start to see it everywhere. Now, let me give it to you in three forms. The first form is access capital. Access is information. It is the map. If someone showing you it, it is someone showing you on the inside of a system before you have to navigate it blind. When I first arrived UNC Wilmington, I did not know I could work. In Nigeria, you go to school, school is school, work is work. I didn't know about work study. I did not know about graduate assistantships. I did not know that students could earn money and stay in school at the same time. My cousin Chimobi knew. He sat with me those first few weeks and he said, here is how it works. Here are the places that hire students. Here is what you need to do. He gave me the map. Because I had the map, I walked across campus looking for opportunity. I found the university residence life. I interviewed. I got a graduate assistantship that paid for my entire tuition, that helped pay my tuition, and gave me a stipend and gave me a housing on campus. That one piece of access, knowing the system existed, changed my entire trajectory. Later, it was Patrick who gave me the next map. He looked at my resume and he said, this is not how a database engineering resume looks. Let me show you. And he connected me to his network. Because he had worked at Income before, he knew how the infrastructure works, what they valued, what the interviewer was going to care about. He gave me the inside information. Access capital is this. Someone who has already walked the path shows you where the traps are and where the doors are. The second form is sponsorship capital. But access alone is not enough. You also need someone to vouch for you, someone to use their credibility, their name, their reputation, their standing to open the door that would not open for you alone. I think about Charles at my church in Atlanta. He was in the position, there was a position opening as a Deacons Board chairman. I was young. I had not been there long. I was not in line for it. By every measure, I should not have gotten that role. But Charles believed in me. And more than that, he fought for me. His own friend was in line for the position. It created a rift between them, but Charles went to the leadership and said, I believe in this guy. I believe he can do a great job, and I'll be there to make sure he is successful. He did not just recommend me, he put his reputation on the line. He fought opposition to get me in. And then when I stepped into that role and faced conflicts with people who had been there longer than I had, Charles did not just give me advice, he stepped in. He had initial conversations with conflicting parties. He did the groundwork so that when I came to the table to mediate, the hardest work had already been done. That is sponsorship capital. Someone saying, I know this person, I'll stake my credibility on them, I will stand with them until they succeed. The third form is identity capital. The third form is identity capital. And this one might be the most important of all. Identity capital is someone believing in you when you do not believe in yourself. It's someone reflecting back to you who you really are in moments when you cannot see it. When I first arrived in the United States, I was carrying the weight of everyone's expectations. I was doubting myself constantly. But my siblings, even from Nigeria at the time, thousands and thousands of miles away, they would call and remind me of who I was. They would say, you are strong, you are capable, keep going. They held the vision for me when I could not hold it for myself. Years later, when I launched the business with my wife Stella, a co-working community space. We invested everything. We remodeled, we prepared, we were ready. And it failed. It failed badly. And in that moment, I felt like I had lost everything. Financially, emotionally, I was in a hole. I felt like I had failed my family. I felt like I had failed myself. But Stella did not leave me in that hole. She did not just comfort me. She actively and deliberately reminded me of who I am. She said, "This is not the end. This is a lesson. You're a good man. You're hardworking. You are intelligent. And next time we'll do this together, it will be greater." She did not let me believe the lie I told myself. She held up a mirror and said, "This is who you are. I see your greatness, even when you cannot." That is identity capital. And without it, you can have all the access and all the sponsorship in the world, and you will still doubt whether you deserve to be in the room. Access showed me what was possible. Patrick showed me the map. Sponsorship got me in the door. Charles stood with me and fought for me. But identity kept me standing. My family, my wife, they reminded me why I was standing in the first place. And here's the thing that breaks the myth of the self made person: I could not have done any of this alone. Not because I was not smart enough, not because I was not hardworking enough, but because human beings are not designed to succeed in isolation. In Igbo, we say, Ikwamai, Ibamai. If the kinsmen do not know, the neighbors will not know. Visibility and opportunity always begins within the community. Section 6, the choice in front of you. So here I was. So here is what I want to ask of you. Whoever you are in this room, if you arrived in this country speaking a different language with a degree that was not recognized, a visa status that made you ineligible for most opportunities, if you live that version of the immigrant story, I want you to think about who opened the door for you, not metaphorically, literally. Who gave you access when the system was closed? Who vouched for you when your credentials were not enough? Who believed in you when you doubted yourself? Write that name down, because most of us have never stopped to acknowledge that we did not do this alone. And if you're sitting in this room having reached some level of success, if you have a job, a business, a platform, a network, I want to ask you a different question. Who are you opening doors for? Because here is what I have seen in our community, in the African immigrant community. And I say this with love. We climb the ladder. We reach certain levels of stability and success and security. And then we tend to do something very curious. We pull the ladder up behind us. We move to the suburbs. We send our kids to private schools. We stop going to community events. We distance ourselves from the very community that held us up when we were struggling. And we tell ourselves a story. I made it on my own. I worked hard. I earned this. And that story is not entirely a lie. You did work hard, but it's an incomplete truth. Because every single one of us who has succeeded, we succeeded because someone stayed in the doorway. Someone used their position to pull us through. The question is, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to be the person who climbs and forgets? Who reaches safety and closes the door behind you? Who tells the next generation, you have to figure it out like I did? Or are you going to be the Reggie, the Charles, the Patrick, the Stella? Are you going to be the person who looks behind them and says, I see you, I believe in you, I'm going to use everything I have to open doors for you? Because belongings capital is not scarce. It does not run out when you give it away. In fact, it multiplies. Every person you mentor becomes a mentor to someone else. Every door you open creates a pathway for the next person. Every person you believe in, when they make it, will turn around and believe in somebody else. This is how systems change. This is how communities thrive. This is how we move from individual survival to collective flourishing. And I'm not just talking about the immigrants who have made it. I'm also talking to you who are still in the struggle, who are still navigating the system, who are still figuring out where you belong. You do not have to do this alone. In fact, you cannot do this alone. And that is not a weakness, that is wisdom. Reach out, ask for help, seek mentors, build community, connect with people who have walked the path you're trying to walk. And when you make a turnaround, stay in the doorway. Use whatever access, credibility, and influence that you have to open doors for people coming behind you. In Igbo, we say akanri kwa akeba kwa akanri. When the right hand washes the left hand washes the right. Then both become clean. That is the vision. That is the future we are building. Section 7, the village. I want to take you back to the airport, January 2010, Wilmington, North Carolina. Standing in the arrivals, terrified, carrying 2 suitcases, and the weight of everyone's expectations. And then I see Chimobi, a familiar face, a known name, someone who chose to be there. That moment changed my life. It was not magic. It was not luck. It was a result of my mother making one introduction. My mother's cousin attending a graduation and asking, "Who are you, young man? And what are you trying to do?" It was a village, a small village, but a village nonetheless. And here is what I have learned in the years since. Every single person in this room is part of a village, whether you know it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not. The question is not whether you will be a part of a village. The question is, what kind of village will you build? Will it be a village where people climb alone and forget where they came from? Where success means distance from the community? Where the ladder gets pulled up once you reach the top? Or will it be a village like the one in Ogwa, where no one asks questions before handing another plate? Where survival is collective? Where one person's breakthrough becomes a pathway for many? Where a man like Dereji furnishes a 2 bedroom apartment for a young couple expecting their first child, not because he had to, but because he cared about others even sometimes more than himself. I remember I was born in that apartment. I'm standing here on the stage today because of a village. I did not build alone, and so are you. Every degree you earned had a teacher who believed in you. Every opportunity you received has someone who opened the door. Every moment you did not give up had someone who reminded you of who you are. Success is not self-made. It never was. It's village-made. So here's my charge to you as you leave this room today. Be intentional. Intentional about acknowledging the village that built you. Intentional about contributing to the village around you. Intentional about reaching back to the person who is standing where you once stood, terrified, capable, and waiting for someone to say, "I see you, I believe you, and I will open this door for you." You are never too successful to give back, and you are never too new to contribute something. There's always a door you can open, there's always a name you can speak, there's always a plate you can hand someone who needs it. Because belonging capital does not run out when you give it away, it multiplies. In Igbo, we say, "Onyagala nwanne," let no one abandon his brother or his sister. That is the village. That is the vision. That is the work. We did not rise alone, and we will not rise alone from here.